power of you controlling your breathing right now. Feel the power of you enjoying your greatest gift right now. That's you. That's your presence. That's your greatest power. Your power to determine to stay in the present, in the now, and be your true great being that you are. No matter what. In this present moment, everything is here you need right now. So let's see ourselves today doing the best we can in the gym of life. Here we are again. Controlling our minds. Controlling our breathing. One great thought at a time. One great breath at a time. So see yourself doing your best on all the exercises we do today together, here and now. That's your determination. Your greatest power. Power that's the same in you and every human being on the planet.
Let's go. Después de 3 canciones seguía, analizando la movida. No sale si está de día, quiere janguear, es su estilo de vida. No le gustan principiantes, que sean calle pero elegantes. Perreamos hasta que tú y yo no aguante. Yo pedí un trago y ella la botella. Abusa siempre que estoy con ella. Hazle caso si no te estrellas. Cualquier problema es culpa de ella. Yo pedí un trago y ella baila pa' que suena el rebote. Pide whisky hasta que se agote. Si lo prende exige que rote. Bailando así vas a hacer que no bote. Nena, seguro que al llegar fuiste la primera. En la cama siempre tú te exageras. Si te quieres ir, pues nos vamos cuando quieras, girl. Nena, seguro que al llegar fuiste la primera. En la cama siempre tú te exageras. Yo pedí un trago y ella la botella. La usa siempre que estoy con ella. Oh yeah, hazle caso si no te estrellas. Abusa siempre que estoy con ella. Oh yeah, hazle caso si no te estrellas. Qué problema es culpa de ella. Yo pedí un trago y ella me robó. A su casa me invitó, de repente me jaló. Para el cuarto me llevó. De lo que hicimos no me acuerdo. Y paséme loco, sé que soy experto. Me tienes soñando despierto, volando sin aeropuerto. Y por cosas de la vida terminé echando bebidas en tu cuerpo. Nena, seguro que al llegar fuiste la primera. En la cama siempre tú te exageras. Si te quieres ir, pues nos vamos cuando quieras, girl. Nena, seguro que al llegar fuiste la primera. En la cama siempre tú te exageras. Yo pedí un trago y ella la botella. Abusa siempre que estoy con ella. Oh yeah, hazle caso si no te estrellas. estamos rompiendo, muchachos. Y seguimos rompiendo. Global. Perreando. Chipábame. Let go, let go.
Plays that one in behind. Ramsey! What a finish! You're not going to see a better goal in Europa League all season. Aaron Ramsey also lead by 3 goals to 1. Right at the start of the game.
Good morning, everyone. Today, in our top 10 rules for success journey, Warren Buffett introduces us to a concept, a phrase that I love, the circle of competence. This is what he uses to describe himself staying within a knowledge base that he understands well. And he also goes on to say that we should not care what other people think. And I think I understand the spirit of that. Of course, we want to care what people think because ultimately it affects everyone, because thought energy is everywhere and we're transmitting it and absorbing it and detracting it every single minute. But I think the idea is that we want to be able to stay within what we know. So for example, I know myself that positive thought energy would lead to good things in my life. So if I stay in that circle of competence of what I know works, then that will become magnified and attract itself. So same thing with you. Stay within what you know. Take what people say because they care, but you do what you have to do. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, my friends, it's Brendan Burchard. Thanks for joining me this morning for a very important topic as we discuss some difficult topics of life. Those topics of loss, of grief, of dealing with tragedy, difficulty, struggle, loneliness, of how do we carry on when bad things happen? How do we find strength and grace and peace in some of the most difficult situations and moments of our lives? That's a big topic today. I encourage you today to enter and frame this conversation in your own mind, to develop your own mindset and attitude towards these conversations before we even have them, because that is one secret, in fact, to dealing with difficulties of life. To set our minds in advance, to set our intentions in advance, to think through and contemplate, how will I cope with that? How will I face that? How will I endure that? That ultimately is one of the great strengths of consciousness, of presence, of intention, of anticipation that allows us to deal with some of the worst issues of life. So let's enter this as a community, positive, to have a beautiful conversation. Let's do it from a perspective of knowing that we're going to deal with some unpleasant emotions that might come up. And let's face that willingly with trust and faith and gratitude, because I'll share one thing that's beautiful about loss and grief. And that is, you only experience those things and feel those things if you had something and you were connected to something that you enjoyed, something that you felt was important, something that was beautiful, something that was meaningful to you. And so you had a sense of meaningful connection, and something maybe shifted or changed, but that was a beautiful gift. I do want to set the stage a little bit more too, because I probably have a different perspective about this conversation that many of you have heard about, and I know I got a lot of questions in advance. Are you going to talk about the 5 stages of grief? And no, I'm not. If you've studied Elizabeth Kubler-Ross or the work or the ideals behind the 5 stages of grief, if you haven't heard of that work before, the idea that there's these 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I'm more of the mind of Elizabeth, who came up with that idea and wrote about that so compellingly. Towards the end of her life, she mentioned that she wished that it had never been framed as stages, because as she wrote about and spoke about towards the end of her life as a theorist and a person who had given hospice care, she thought, I wish everyone didn't think there were these stages you're supposed to go through. Some of you feel like you're supposed to feel great by now. You feel like, well, I should have moved through these stages. I should be okay by now. And some of the greatest, moments of grace that you ever allow yourself in life is the grace of time. The grace of allowing, like every single person here, if you look at what we're doing here, these Zoom tiles, every person here will cope with grief differently. Right? Everything I'm going to share with you today is just by nature going to be a generic nature. Everyone will cope differently. And if you're still struggling through and you think, geez, I should be in the stage of acceptance by now, I want to let you know, the person who literally came up with the idea of the 5 stages of grief wished it wasn't called stages, because she thought everyone deals with it differently. It's not sequential. These things become circular in time, and not everybody feels all of these emotions either, right? The people who I've lost in my life, I've never yet had the sense of anger toward. I didn't have a sense of anger that thing happened. I didn't have anger towards my father dying. And I know that might sound completely crazy to people, but that wasn't an emotion that I experienced with death. Partially because of the way that I have faced mortality throughout my life. Not everyone goes through all these stages. So I want to set that frame off the bat. Everybody copes differently. There's no right or wrong way to experience loss. There is, however, a healthy way to re-engage life. We know from 50 years of psychological study, and you all know it inherently and innately, that there's ways that we cope that are healthy, and there's ways that don't make us feel good. There's things that we do that can lead to less ability to continue on with life in a happy way. One of the most important and powerful frames I can give you for loss and grief, above all else and above everything else, is conscious anticipation. Conscious anticipation. Consciousness or awareness in life is so important if we're going to cope well. And what we usually mean when we speak about that, especially with loss and grief, is having the ability to anticipate that it will happen. Okay? That it will happen. That if you haven't faced your own mortality and your own death yet, I deeply invite you to do that at some point. Face your mortality, your own personal mortality. Most people have never had a conversation about death in their own mind with themselves, let alone contemplating that maybe they would lose a parent one day, or a sibling one day, or a job one day. In other words, in a spiritual practice, we would talk about this as a concept of awareness to impermanence. You've heard that phrase before, awareness to impermanence, that nothing is permanent. That in a lot of spiritual principles, you might think of, well, what is permanent maybe is if it's God, or if it's universe, or it's the Tao, or the way, that there might be something spirit that is permanent, but in the human experience, in our natural world, things are impermanent. Can you face that? Can you face that? Can you anticipate that? Let me switch metaphors for you real quickly. As many of you know, I do this for a living. I talk to groups of people all the time. I'm out on social media all the time, and I talk with so many influencers, so many people who want to be leaders and who are building up their brands and their careers, and they're shocked when someone judges them on the internet. They're amazed when someone posts a negative, just mean comment. They can't believe it. Can you believe this person posted this mean thing on my video I spent months on my life's work? I posted a message that's beautiful about my family and this person attacked me. Can you believe it? I'm like, yes. Why are you surprised? It's called the internet. Anyone ever been surprised you got a mean attack on the internet? Well, I tell my peers all the time, I'm like, please don't be surprised that that is something that I guarantee that will happen. If you are commuting, if you are driving to work or you are driving somewhere and you are cut off by somebody in traffic and you go into a rage about it, I'm like, you were surprised? And I know these are simple and simplistic and almost silly metaphors here, but I just want to switch your mind into that anticipatory power that we all have. That when we actually anticipate, oh, this is going to happen, we are way more capable of being centered than when we don't anticipate it. I'm not saying there will not be shock. I am not saying there won't be heartache. I am not saying there won't be incredible fear or denial or regret or sadness. But what I'm suggesting to you now is find peace with the inevitable. If we can find peace with the inevitable in advance, we are more able to cope. Switching metaphors again. We have a lot of people in this group here who served in the military before. And as you know, I've been blessed to coach some of the highest level groups in the military across all branches. And the way that they deal with what is about to come when it is just like one of the most difficult missions or projects or tours of their lifetime is they rehearse it over and over and over and over again in their mind and in practice and in the field. They get comfortable with what is going to be an uncomfortable, unpleasant, potentially terrorizing situation. I don't pretend that's easy. And that's one reason I love the military, their willingness to do what is incredibly difficult to protect the freedoms that we all enjoy. But I will share, there's some kind of power in that. And I had that. When I was a 19-year-old kid and I had my car accident, it forced me to face death. Any fans here of philosophy? Anyone ever read philosophy? Well, if you've never really gotten into the study of philosophy, I hope you will. And you'll know chapter 1 in all of philosophy, almost across all philosophers in the history of the world, chapter 1, if we could generalize, says you're gonna die. Now let's talk about life. That's like the fundamental of philosophy. So I read so much, I got comfortable with the fact that I was going to lose people and there was going to be loss in life. Anticipation. Now I know this does not sound really motivating, but that's not the point here. The point is to say, can we anticipate it? When I received the call from my dad, letting me know that he had been just diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia out of nowhere. He woke up, was lacking some balance as he walked down the hallway. It was Mother's Day of 2009. So he woke up on Mother's Day, didn't feel good. Mom said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "I don't feel good." He's kind of unbalanced. The weeks before, he's playing golf and racquetball and bowling. He's healthy. All of a sudden, something's wrong. Doesn't get better. They go to the hospital. Within a few hours, he's sitting with 2 doctors who are looking at his blood work and then do some more tests. And they let him know he has 7 days to live. And they say, you have AML, acute myeloid leukemia. There's 2 types of leukemia. AML is the one that usually takes the person quickly. And they said, you have 7 days. Because what happens is your stem cells, I don't want to go to the whole thing about leukemia, but essentially you're creating blood that's not good and ultimately it shuts down your organs. I know I could go deeper into that, but those who know what I'm talking about, with leukemia, it strikes fast. And so he had 7 days. And as soon as he told me that, I was like, okay. And I was in shock. And I wanted to deny it. And I had fear. And that comes from shock. You know, when you hear news that you didn't anticipate or something happens you didn't anticipate, you're gonna have a shock reaction. And for me, I was shocked about it at first, and those emotions come in. And by the end of the conversation though, as I felt those emotions come up, I also was releasing them because I'd already contemplated my father's passing years earlier in journaling activities of how I would think of the passing of people. And I know that sounds almost fatalistic, but you know, have you ever heard that saying, you don't want to leave things unsaid? Well, I was reading a book one time and said, you know what, contemplate the passing of people who are important in your life so that you don't leave things unsaid. So that you know, think of like, wow, what if this is my last moment with this person? If this was my last moment with this person, what would I love to say to them and communicate to them? And don't leave those things unsaid. Now, I know that's difficult because all of us have had situations where someone has passed or know someone who's passed and things were unsaid. And that is incredibly unsettling. It brings up shock and it brings up regret and it brings up sadness, which we'll talk about those emotions. But also in this moment, in the here and now, listen, none of us can take back whatever's happened in our lives, right? Whatever's happened has happened. It is as it was, as it is. We are here now, and all we can do moving forward together as a group is anticipate moving forward. We can't, like, this is not a thing where I'm going to try to be on a healing journey of the things of the decades past for any of us, because we all heal in our own time, in our own ways. But I'm here to say it's incredibly powerful if we can contemplate mortality and anticipate it and go, wow, what should I say to my kids? What should I say to my loved ones? Let me make sure I take care of people and treat people in ways that I don't regret and that things are said. One reason I was at peace, because my father had already said everything needed to say to me. I was lucky on that. I'd already said everything I needed to say. Now we just had to go through the process with honor and integrity and respect and love of end of life and not deny it, face it. My dad faced it with a positive attitude. He knew it was coming. They told him, you have 7 days. He's a Marine, so he made it 59 days. Good job, Dad. And he fought with great attitude. I just couldn't believe it. I kept waiting for his attitude to sour. It never did. Couldn't believe it. He anticipated the end, and he anticipated how he wanted to face it. And it was incredible. And I was lucky to witness that. And I want to let you know, I've also witnessed the complete opposite in care before. Been with families where it was the opposite. And that wasn't right or wrong either. It is, people cope with the end of life is the way that they can. And for those of you who've cared for someone at the end of their lives, I want to let you know that caregiver guilt is something that if you are facing it or you've ever faced it, that's okay. That's entirely normal. And that you need to grant yourself the peace of knowing you did the best you could at the time with what you knew. You know, I've had the blessing of working with a lot of medical professionals, doctors, and hospice care workers who talk about this. Gosh, I wish I could, you know, we all wish we could take back time and go change things. We can't. And so today, grant yourself the peace and the gift of knowing you did the best that you could at the time that you knew how to do. They did the best they knew that they could. I wish, you know, that was the first time I've ever cared for somebody personally for months on end with leukemia. I wish I knew more about leukemia at the time. I didn't know. So some things I would have done differently, and Dad would have done differently, and my family would have done differently. We did the best we could, and so did Dad. And I want to let you know that no matter what you have dealt with in grief in the past, your family or others' loss, losing a job, your divorce, your breakup, your loss of job, listen, you were as conscious as you were at that moment. You did what you could, and you need to give yourself grace, because please listen to me, my friends. at that time, you were in shock and you were coping. And if you just need a little science from, Brendan right now, let me drop some science on you. A stunning fact that when people are in shock or coping, they don't always perform at their highest level best. Oh my gosh, did the performance guy just tell us that? And say it's okay? Yes. I'm letting you know it's okay that you weren't absolutely phenomenal and perfect, and other people around you weren't absolutely and phenomenal and perfect. It's okay if you were getting divorced and the two of you fought. It's okay if you're getting fired and you screamed at your boss. It's okay. Whatever happened, you now must go, I accept it as it was. I'm at peace with what it was. I did the best I knew how at the time. And even if you don't believe you did the best as you could at the time, it doesn't matter, because yesterday's darkness didn't rise with the sun today.
Qué calor, en la discoteca, qué calor. Y acá, para la muñeca, por favor. En la discoteca, qué calor. Y acá, para la muñeca, por favor. Esa rubia no me entiende si yo le hablo en español, pero se aprendió la canción a la perfección. Por mi patria, por mi nación, ninguna discriminación. Aquí no hay raza ni religión, bailalo por obligación. Qué calor, qué calor, qué calor. En la discoteca, qué calor. Llega para la muñeca, por favor. Por favor.
Las mujeres me las como al vapor, en la playa bañado en sudor. Los bikinis te quedan mejor, tú eres mi amor, mol. Cada vez que veo ese booty yo me quedo loco. Tú le das trabajo, mami, con mucho saoco. Como tú lo mueves en el mundo, lo mueves poco. Dale, baila lo loco. Como tú lo mueves en el mundo, lo mueves poco. Dale, baila lo loco. Como tú lo mueves en el mundo, lo mueves poco.
Calentamiento global, anda suelto el animal. Mano arriba el que es real. Qué calor, en la discoteca, qué calor. Y acá, para la muñeca, por favor. En la discoteca, qué calor. Y acá, para la muñeca, por favor. Qué calor, qué calor. Y acá, en la discoteca, qué calor. Y acá, para la muñeca, por favor.
It's Colombia. Still Colombia. Alright? Colombia. Not Colombia. Something right at the end. Here's Memphis Depay. Goes for goal. He scores! And Leon have won it! Right at the end. The substitute with a goal. And the Groupama Stadium has exploded.
Morning, guys. In a world where the greatest challenge we face, or one of the greatest challenges we face, is our mind health, I want us to remember one thing.
It is the one thing that is an absolute certainty in a world of uncertainty, fear, doubt, anxiety, depression, ignorance, all these negative things. One thing from here on in. Even if you don't understand it or believe it, I do. And I'll never stop. I'll always believe in this power in you and all of us. And it can change everything. It can save you in your darkest hour. And it is this. You have the most powerful thing in the universe. It's in here. Yes, you. Doesn't matter if you're a young child or 100 years old. You have the ability to control your mind, and you have the most powerful thing in the universe. I believe it. I'll never stop believing it.
Row, row, row your boat. Don't row my boat. Don't row somebody else's boat. Don't try to row a boat that somebody else tells you you should be rowing. And how do you row this boat? Always gently, always with peace, always with kindness. Row your boat that way. Row your boat gently down the stream. Thoreau put it this way. He said, our truest life is when we are in our dreams awake. Because life is but a dream. Let's sing it together just for a minute. Together, ready? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. That's all it is. It's just a dream.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I struggled to believe in myself. I quit on my business partner. And the thing that saved me was watching the successful stories of entrepreneurs. They gave me the inspiration to keep going, as well as the strategies of what to do. And quite honestly, I still need their stories and motivation today as well. So today, let's live your best believe life and learn how to change our lives with Wayne Dyer. Enjoy. Rule number 2 is follow your calling.
You talk about when you're a kid, you kind of know what you want to do. You can feel it. And if you kind of get away from that, I think you become miserable.
Absolutely. And there's a calling, and we all get called. Yeah. And when you know, I'll tell you, when you know the calling is your dharma, it's when you feel the passion. It's when it's something that can't stop you. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to write a book. I was with Arthur Miller years ago, the great playwright, American playwright, Death of a Salesman and so on. And they asked him at the age of 91, are you working on another play? And he said, I loved his answer. He said, I don't know. He said, but I probably am.
Yeah.
And so like he had this kind of awareness. I know exactly what he's talking about. It's like I was called the father of motivation, but motivation is an ego concept. I am going to make it happen. I am motivated. Yeah. Spirit is something very different. Inspiration isn't when an idea when you get a hold of an idea and take it where you want to go. Inspiration is when an idea gets a hold of you, which is what your life is. And you allow yourself to be taken where you were intended to go in the first place. And I think your mom was absolutely right. When she said, you will meet him, she had an absolute knowing. And she probably is behind this interview here right now, because I wasn't even going to come here. I was going to go back to Maui, and then I said, no, I'll just, instead of flying all the way back, I'll spend a couple of weeks down here in South Florida. My son is here, my daughters are here, and so on. And I was back and forth. But the back and forthness is not something that you're doing yourself. It's like, it's just saying, come here, you got this guy, he wants to talk to you. Your mother probably is right here in the room right now, orchestrating the whole thing. And if there's any book that you want to read, if you don't read another book in the rest of your life, I want you to read this book. I'll send you a copy. It's called Dying to Be Me.
Okay.
It's the story of a woman who was in a coma and was dying and was there to give her last breath. She had end-stage cancer. And she had a near-death experience and came back, and it's like, it'll blow you away. It's
wow, that's great.
And you'll reconnect with your mom in the same way.
Rule number 3 is live in harmony.
In the universe, there is an unmeasurable, indescribable force which those who live of the source, in quotes, of the source, and of the source means sorcerer. Now, not sorcerer in the word, when we think of sorcerer, we think of witches and incantations and all kinds of hocus pocus and so on. That's not what the word sorcerer means. It means of the source. those who live of the source. In the universe, there is an unmeasurable and indescribable force which those who live of the source call intention. And that absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link. And then he goes on to say, sorcerers are not only concerned with understanding and explaining that connecting link, but they are especially concerned with cleansing it of the numbing effects brought about by all of the concerns of living at ordinary levels of consciousness. Very important and powerful words to consider. Think of it like this, that everything in this universe was intended here, including you, including every mosquito and every palm tree and every avocado and all of the Rocky Mountains and the oceans, that everything that shows up in the material world emanates from a source. And this source can be thought of as that which intends things into the material world. And the question here today isn't whether or not you are going to be connected to it, because you couldn't be listening to this program. You couldn't be processing what I'm saying here if you weren't connected to this field. This field beats your heart. This field of energy grows your fingernails and grows everybody else's fingernails. I used to say it grows your hair, but I've become a little suspicious of that, you know. But it animates all life. Now, this is one observation, that intention is what I'd like you to think of when I think about the power of intention. Intention isn't about whether you're going to connect to it. You're already connected to it. The question is, how rusty, how corroded, how dirty is the link between you and this field of intention? And sorcerers are those who are concerned with cleansing this connecting link so that you become more and more in rapport with, or in harmony with, this field of intention. And the more you're in harmony with this field of intention, the more you are able to do all that this field of intention is able to do. You are able to create miracles. You are able to heal yourself. You are able to attract into your life the abundance that has been missing. You are able to find the right people and have them show up exactly on time, because that's how the universal source from which all things and all people originated, that's how it works. And what we're going to be doing here today in this program is looking at how to get that link back to intention, and to not only be connected to it, but to always be ready to keep that connecting link clean, uncorroded. One of the things that really intrigues me is this idea, and I heard it many, many years ago. I'm not even sure of the original source where I heard it, but it goes like this. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Albert Einstein once observed that you have the most fundamental and major decision that you have to make in your life is this: do I live in a friendly or a hostile universe? Which is it? Is it a universe that is filled with hostility and anger and people wanting to hate each other and people wanting to kill each other? Is that what you see? Because when you see the world that way, that's exactly what you will create for yourself in your life. This is from great scientific minds. And the interesting thing is that this is not just a clever play on words, that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's actually a very scientific thing, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. I'd like you to imagine the following scene. You're in your house. You've got your car keys in your hand. The lights go out. Power failure. You can't see a thing. You stumble around in your living room and you drop your keys. And you look around for a moment and you realize that you're never going to find them in the dark. But you look outside and you notice that the street lights are on. So in your mind, a light bulb goes off.
I'm not going to sit around here in the dark and grope around looking for my keys when there's a light on outside. I'm going to go out here under the street light, and I'm going to look for my keys. Why are you laughing? This makes a lot of sense. So you're out here and you're groping around and you're looking for your keys and you're looking and your neighbor comes along and says, "What happened, Wayne?" "Well, I dropped my keys." "Oh, I'll help you look for them." And the two of us are now down here looking for our keys and looking. Finally, he says to me, "Excuse me, but where did you drop your keys?" "Well, I dropped them in the house." He said, "You mean to tell me that you dropped your keys in the house and you're looking for them out here in the streetlight? Doesn't make any sense." And I said, "Well, it doesn't make any sense to grope around in the dark when there's light out here." Now you laugh and you think how silly that is, but isn't that exactly what we do when we have a problem, a difficulty, a struggle that is located inside and we're looking for the solution outside, someplace outside of ourselves? The question isn't whether I'm connected to this field of intention. The question is, how ready am I to keep that connecting link absolutely corrosion-free?
Did a full 180, crazy, thinking about the way I was. Did the heartbreak change me? Maybe, but look at where I ended up. I'm all good already, so moved on. It's scary, I'm not where you left me at all. So, if you don't wanna see me dancing with somebody, if you wanna believe that anything could stop me, don't show up, don't come out, don't start caring about me now. Walk away, you know how. Don't start caring about me now. Aren't you the guy who tried to hurt me with the word goodbye? Though it took some time to survive you, I'm better on the other side. I'm all good already, so moved on. It's scary, I'm not where you left me at all. So, if you don't wanna see me dancing with somebody, if you wanna believe that anything could stop me, don't show up, don't come out, don't start caring about me now. Walk away, you know how. Don't start caring about me now. Don't stop now. I'm not where you left me at all.
Good morning, guys. Yesterday we talked about moving forward with determination. Today I want us to think of ourselves in terms of being an energy source. And our greatest energy is our thoughts. So I challenge us today, and from this point on, to move and tune into the channel of positive thought energy. The channel of positive thought energy. So today, things are going to come at us from the outside world. Negative things, most likely, but also some positive things. I want us to look at ourselves as a TV channel or a radio station. We have the ability to control the thought energy, that source, and align with that. So when something negative happens today, I want you to quickly think about what's going on with the energy of your thoughts. See if you can even take one moment where you change the channel into the channel of positive thought energy. I hope this helps everyone. Have a great day.
Your presence is your power. If you want to live in that life of flow, if you want to attract that partner, if you want to get that book out into the world, if you want to make more money, if you want to just feel better, you have to stop worrying so much about how you look and what you say and start practicing how you be. What do you bring forth? What do you show up with? What is the energy that you imprint onto your office mates? What's the energy you imprint when you come into a room of strangers? What is the energy that you imprint on a date? What is the energy that you imprint when you're walking on the streets of New York City? Is it an energy of fear? Is it an energy of tension? Is it an energy of chaos? Or is it an energy of free flowing, awesome power? Is it an energy of spirit coming through you? Is it an energy of inspiration, excitement, enthusiasm?
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I struggled to believe in myself. I quit on my business partner. And the thing that saved me was watching the successful stories of entrepreneurs. They gave me the inspiration to keep going, as well as the strategies of what to do. And quite honestly, I still need their stories and motivation today as well. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Gabby Bernstein, and my take on her top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, take action.
What I teach in the book is this method called the spiritually aligned action method. And it's a very valuable method for the pushers out there in the house, okay? Big one. So when I was in my late 20s, I'd been teaching and speaking publicly all throughout New York City for about 3 years. And at that time, I'd also got my first book deal, and my book was gonna come out in December of that year. So it was 2008, 2009, I don't remember, it's been a while. And I was preparing for this book, and I was thinking about how I felt really deeply called to bring this message to a new audience of seekers, a younger audience, a newer audience. And now it's not that crowd anymore specifically, it's much broader. But at the time, that was where I was 28 years old. And I'm turning 40 in 2 weeks, people. Can you freaking believe it? Today, somebody reminded me that, and I was like, what? I'm 40? Okay. I've been doing this a long time, okay? So I was 28 years old, and this was all coming to be in my life, and I was starting to see this trend and this new zeitgeist of young women trading in their party for their meditation, and I was really at the forefront of that. And I was really wanting to share that story in a bigger way, and I wanted it to be having an impact, and I wanted it to find people, particularly in a place where they may not have been looking for it. And so around that time, I saw this article in the Sunday Style section of the New York Times. It was a big, big feature placement on the cover of the Style section. And I noticed it was about my friends. It was about a bunch of my friends that were food bloggers at the time. And the article came out, and it blew their careers up. It got their messages out into major ways. They've gone on to have massive businesses and great careers. And I was looking at that beautiful article about these young food bloggers, and I saw what an impact it made on their movement that they were creating. And I ripped that masthead off the newspaper, and I put it on my vision board. And I was like, that's what I want. And there was only one reporter at the New York Times that I knew, because formerly my career was in PR. So I knew this guy, and he was in my Rolodex, no joke, Rolodex. And so I spun through my Rolodex, and I found Alan Salkin. As I call this guy Alan. and I'm cold calling. He picks up the phone and he goes, hello? Hi, Alan, it's Gabby Bernstein. We met a year ago in Soho at a dinner. What do you want? I have an interesting pitch for you. I'll make it really fast. It's all the girls that used to want to be like Carrie Bradshaw now want to be like Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson. And he said, interesting. I'll get back to you. I hung up that phone and I was like, I got an interesting, yes, that's major, he's interested. So the thing I want to point out is that I picked up that call with a lot of conviction, desire, service, love, confidence, and excitement. And then I got the interesting, and I didn't think that was a good idea to push that interesting. I felt like it would be nice to just let that interesting unfold. So months went by and I let the interesting unfold, and he would send me a few emails and he would message me at times and say, tell me a little bit more about other people that are doing this and how is this a trend and what's happening. And the months kept going by and by and by. And then about a month before my book came out, I get a call from Alan. It's Alan. The New York Times is picking up your story. I'll see you at your apartment next week. We're gonna videotape and we're gonna take photos and I'm gonna do an interview with you and I'll see you there, bye. My story was happening, it was happening, it was happening. So I was so pumped. So Alan came over that Monday night and he watched me as I coached my group coaching workshop, and he they took photos and he was just a fly on the wall taking notes. Then when that was over, everybody left, the photographer left, the students left, and I was left in my apartment with Alan doing the interview. At the end of the interview, Alan walks over to my vision board and he looks at the bottom right-hand corner and he says, what's that? Pointing at the New York Times masthead. I said, well, you know, Alan, I've been manifesting this article and this story for a really long time. About a year and a half ago, I saw this story about these food bloggers in the style section, and I just knew that that was what I wanted to manifest. And he looked at me in total shock, and he said, I wrote that story. So yes, this is a story of synchronicity, of course, but more important, it's a story of how I took spiritually aligned action to manifest and co-create a desire that really put me on the map.
Rule number 3 is build a miracle mindset.
Well, I think that there's this
on our breathing. Back straight, eyes closed, legs crossed. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Feel that power that you're using to control your breathing. Your connection to oneness, to what we all really are, to the truth. The ultimate truth. That you were born to win control over your mind. That when we all do that, find out the truth of who we all really are. Infinitely intelligent beings, powerful beyond measure. The power of all knowing right here, right now, this moment. You're already made of all knowing of the universe. You're made of that same stuff. With that, you can always have and be your true, peaceful, happy, kind, loving self. No matter what. reflect back on your effort today, always remember that if you gave your best in whatever you were doing, that you can do it now, and you can do it forever. That's what makes you a winner. Born to be happy and peaceful, to be mind healthy and wealthy, always. No matter what's going on outside your mind, no matter what anybody or anything suggests about you, any negativity, that's all a lie. It's all losses. Losses that we, as determination, we get to transform to win, into truth, into accuracy of who we really are.